Okay, here we go. This is document 1. I'm going to best to get it this way. I want you to take a close observation of this document. This is regarding our vessel Jacob's Ladder, circa 212. You'll note on the document, Mr. Chief Justice, Simon Wiesenthal Center, and anyone else who wants to see, contact names and fax numbers for distribution of Ottawa's copy. This is regarding, Mr. Chief Justice and Rabbi Har, the detention order of my vessel using the Commercial Shipping Act. This document was included with the other ones I'm about to show you. If you look at line 2, you'll see Foreign Affairs and International Trade, IDR, fax number, and so on. And when you issue a pleasure craft vessel detention, I say to you, Mr. Chief Justice in the Supreme Court, and anyone else listening in, and also Rabbi Har, what does the Foreign Affairs and International Trade have to do with a detention order of a little 30-foot pleasure boat? And here's another one here. There's Marine Safety, Port State Control, Foreign Affairs and International Trade, IDR. Let's go down a little further here. Now let's look at this document. Applied under Memoranda Understanding, Port State Control. Okay, and I'll give you a minute to read this here, okay? And there's the address. We'll just shine the camera very slowly here. Okay, so that this can be read by those that look. Now, that came with the detention order against my pleasure boat. Okay. Okay, we're gonna. This is the original document received by a Mr. Yu Hell on June 20th, 2012, while we were anchored in the water next to Lennox Island in St. Paul de l'Île, Illinois. Look at the document. Hold on, I'll just scroll down. Look at what it says here. Look at what it says here. Very carefully take a look at what this document says. Okay? It says Port of Registry, CDN certificate number, certificate of signing authority, date of inspection, IMO number, official number. Okay? And we scroll down here and we see my name. Okay? And we keep scrolling. All right? And we keep scrolling. And let's read this section here. Masters and owners. Please read this. Okay, read what this says. Take a look. Okay, and there is my signature because I didn't have my glasses. Okay, that's that document. And take a look at the bottom at the number Delta November 002397. Well, we called ship safety. Okay, over this document. Mr. Yu Hell never registered this on his computer at his office because he didn't want other people to question what he had done in Transport Canada. This is why this document by Mr. Yu Hell was not placed in his official computer for the viewing of senior officials at Transport Canada. Okay, here's the next one. This one was by Pierre Lebrun. He brought this to my boat while we were docked at a dock, repairing our boat, putting new decks on it, and repairing the cabin. As soon as they saw that we were fixing our boat at a private dock, the boat wasn't going anywhere, they decided to take action before the boat was ready for sea. And I'll show you this document. Take a good look. Transport Canada, detention order, notice of detention in accordance with the provisions of the Canada Shipping Act and Port State Control. Now let's look here. Name of vessel, aka Jacob's Ladder. Type of vessel, pleasure craft. Flag state, not available. Gross tonnage, the date the keel was laid. These words are for commercial ships when they say keel. This is for a commercial ship. Gross tonnage, port of detention. Official number, IMO number, port of registry. Classification society, owner, manager. Okay? This is a commercial ship document that seizes commercial ships of trade and transport across the oceans. Let's take a look at this down at the bottom. Read this. Okay? It says, foreign ships, violations of Section 6 of the vessel certificates, regulations, or safety deficiencies contain International Convention for Safety of Life at Sea, International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification, Watchkeeping for Seafarers, International Convention on Load Lines, Merchant Shipping, Minimum Standards Convention 1976, 147, other. Detainable deficiencies or defects briefly consist of. This is for commercial ships. Now let's scroll down a little further. Okay. And let me just, I'm looking for something. Yes. This is detention order rescinded. Lean LaRoche is the individual who legally signed this. Okay. And if you look at the bottom, which is really important, I'll just try and steady the camera. Appeal, see other side. There is no appeal. Captain's copy, PSC officer's copy, Ottawa. This is for a commercial detention order, not the documents for a pleasure craft. Okay. Now, after the first order to pull the boat out of the water, which is the document I showed you first from Mr. Yu Hell, we were told we were allowed to send an appeal to the Canadian Tribunal Board in Ottawa. Okay, so we sent a copy of that document with the file number. This document here, let me just pull it up again. This one here, that one, that document. Okay, we sent this document to the Transportation Appeal Tribunal of Canada, 333 Laurier Avenue West, Suite 1201, Ottawa, Ontario. Telephone 613-990-3477, and their fax number. Email mary.cannon@tatc.gc.ca. Okay. Now let me read to you the response from Miss Cannon when she received our appeal based on this document here. That one. See it? That one there, issued by Mr. Yu Hell. Let me read to you Mary Cannon's reply to our appeal. You can read it yourself. Here's her email to us. I'll just do a close-up on that. Here is her letter. We've been trying to get this one to the Supreme Court now since 2012 and being blocked every step of the way by the Government of Canada and their Mounties hacking all our electronic transmissions. This is further to your, it says Daniel and Jennifer Fitzgerald. This is further to your application to the Transportation Appeal Tribunal of Canada, tribunal in brackets, requesting a review of the Minister of Transport's decision to issue a commercial vessel deficiency notice. So she confirms that Denny LaBelle, the Minister of Transport under Stephen Harper, issued a commercial vessel deficiency notice, not a pleasure notice, as you can see. And she put notice in brackets. She says, as the tribunal has no authority to review a decision of the minister to issue this type of notice, your request for a review is therefore denied. Here is her regards. And below, Mary Cannon, Register West, Transportation Appeal Tribunal of Canada on Laurier. There's the phone numbers. Okay? It says also here, look at this. To Rabbi Marvin Heyer of SWC, Rabbi Heyer. I even wrote your name at the top of these documents I emailed to you that the center never received. Why? Because Canada stopped you. That's why. The RCMP, Rabbi Heyer. Now let's just, I showed you these, let's just move on. This one, I'll save the best for last. Okay, let me just continue here quickly. Let's get rid of that. Documents away. Now this one here is Your Honor, Mr. Chief Justice. Stephen Harper, Mr. Chief Justice, went to the block on Parliament Hill. He wanted them, Mr. Chief Justice, to use their criminal resources in Quebec, Your Honor, including Nazis and mafia and law enforcement, to obtain the evidence to be collected. Some of this material, Your Honor, that I just showed you is evidence. Harper wanted to eliminate it. So he sent a memorandum to the block, Mr. Chief Justice. Let me explain. Here it is. Read that. Harper's order, block notes. Look at this. Now look what it says right here. On DIF, that's Daniel Fitzgerald. That's the abbreviation letters for my name. Stephen Harper is saying, destroy private data, invalid argument. If you look at the dates, Your Honor, over here, look at the dates. 2/12/3/19, 2/12/7/13, 2/12/7/13. Okay, that was July, Your Honor. It was on June 20th that U-Help came to our boat at Lennox Island, where Harper was to come to Lennox Island on September 13th, Your Honor, to pay tribute to the military base there of Canada's that goes back to the 18th century. You see. Okay, now, if you look below here, you will see something else. Trying to register application for unknown global event. Mr. Chief Justice, the reason why that's there, you see, is because at that time, Mr. Chief Justice, as I was very religious, as I am now, Mr. Chief Justice, and I was having these visions in my sleep when I slept with my Bible and prayed on my boat. I was having these visions, Mr. Chief Justice, of destruction of the planet. And I was calling the office of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, reporting to the American government from Lacole, Your Honor, on a payphone that the provincial police of Quebec were hacking into, the only payphone in this strip mall, and they were recording the things I was saying to the office of Hillary Clinton. And part of the reports were these dreams I was having, Mr. Chief Justice, of God's act to destroy the planet. So what happened here was they were listening in, you see, to my visional dreams, and that's why they stayed here trying to register application for unknown global event. You can see there were several failures, okay? And you can see here, what does it say? I didn't have a cover letter. It was urgently sent to the White House, okay? From Dan and Jen Fitzgerald to White House Harper's order, Mr. Chief Justice. Okay. Now, here is Rabbi Hire, and this is for the court. This is a picture, Mr. Chief Justice, of our boat Jacob's Ladder, circa 2011-12, Mr. Chief Justice, in La Cire de Champlain Marine in Lacole, Quebec. As you can see, it's on blocks. You see the tarp on the left side, Your Honor. Every night they came to the boat and ripped the tarp off, and every day we had to put it back over the boat. It wasn't the wind. There are other boats lined up with my boat whose tarps never came off because of the wind. One night while we were sleeping, Mr. Chief Justice, in our other boat, not 100 meters away from our new boat, this boat here that I'm showing you photos of, I heard a banging noise in the yard, like somebody hitting something with a sledgehammer, and I became immediately concerned. My wife told me to go into the yard. I said, no, I'm too scared, I might get hurt, okay? So I went into the yard the next morning, Mr. Chief Justice, and I searched around our boat on the ground. I could see footprints, Mr. Chief Justice, and I couldn't see any damage to the boat because I heard that my wife and I heard this hammer pounding from our other boat, which was located on the property next to a small canal that's in a wooded area right next to the yard, okay? But when I looked under the boat, Your Honor, this is what I found. There. Right there. See that? You see the missing paint off the bottom. You can see the different colors of paint. If you look at what they did was, Your Honor, they hit my hull with a sledgehammer or something, trying to smash through it. But what happened here is they hit the engine barrier, which is made out of wood, and pointed up vertically that the engines sit on. And this is what they were hitting, okay? That's what one of the documents of many, Your Honor, evidence, and you can see the arrow pointing to it, okay? Okay, so let's just continue on. Also, Rabbi Hire, you can see it. Now, this picture is important, Mr. Chief Justice, and Rabbi Hire, you see this picture? That's my wife on the bow of Jacob's Ladder, circa 2012 in the summer. The weather was beautiful. You see the boat, it's not in very good shape. We were going to work on it on the water and fix the cabin and put new decks in it. This is what we were saving our money for, okay? But look at the boat. You see something wrong here with this picture? You can see the boat, Your Honor, is high and dry in the mud. You see my wife on the bow? Your Honor, when you look at the bow section right here, see where my finger's pointed right there? The night, 8 hours, Your Honor, before we took this photo, you see this section of my bow? That was in water, and it was just touching the beach. Well, at the back of the boat, I'd thrown my anchor up. My props were underneath 7 feet of water. As we slept overnight, Mr. Chief Justice, My wife woke up in the morning and she woke me up. We were sleeping in the bow where she's leaning over there. And she said to me, Dan, the boat's not moving. Because every morning she gets up, you can feel the boat move a little bit. So I jumped up, got out of bed, went up into the wheelhouse, looked over the side, and my boat was high and dry in the mud. And as you can see here in the photograph, looking down here, the whole boat is out of the water. Okay, but it was worse than that. A few hours after this photo was taken, the river, my boat was in the mud 6 feet beyond the transom. Okay, the river dropped, Your Honor. This boat is a 30-foot boat, Mr. Chief Justice. You can see the bow was just sticking on the beach. They lowered the river, Your Honor, while we slept by 36 feet in 8 hours. The weather was fine. There was no flooding, no rain. A lot of the homes along this Richelieu River in St. Jean-sur-Richelieu, Mr. Chief Justice, are 2 feet above the river. There was no rain at all. There was no flooding. After this had happened for weeks, Your Honor, it was clear blue skies and summer weather. Why, Your Honor, did they lower the river by 36 feet in 8 hours while we slept? What was the reason for that? The weather was fine. There was no flooding. There was no hurricanes, Mr. Chief Justice. They did it on purpose against my wife and I, Your Honor. We allege that they lowered the Chamblay lock, or the Chamblay Dam. This photo here is another one of the photos, one of many. If you take a good look at this photograph, you're going to see all these little yellow spots with arrows pointing at them, Mr. Chief Justice, on the back of my boat, Jacob's Ladder. We didn't remove Liberator. I was going to sand it off, but you can see the patches of yellow in these areas. All the arrows that you see pointing at these patches, but only the patches where the arrows are. Ignore the ones that don't have arrows. This, Your Honor, is where my wife and I slept, and someone came up to the back of our boat, Mr. Chief Justice, and drilled holes 1/8 of an inch in diameter all across the transom. We woke up to it. So those yellow spots you're seeing are epoxy mixed with thickener, Mr. Chief Justice, to plug up the holes, after which I would have sanded down the transom. But I couldn't. I had to take a photograph of the vandalism. This all happened, Mr. Chief Justice, in Le Sieur de Champlain Marina when my boat was on blocks. See, so when Mr. Uhel came on June 20th, Your Honor, to order us to move our ordered us to take our boat out of the water, we kept telling him that the marinas weren't secure, that our boat was targeted. We offered him evidence showing what that our boat had been targeted in Le Sieur de Champlain Marina. We had told Mr. Uhel we have the evidence on board. Is he willing to see it? He refused. Needless to say, Mr. Chief Justice, we had no idea whatsoever that this guy was applying a Commercial Freighter Act. And his buddy, Mr. Pierre Lebrun, of the Commercial Ship Office of Transport Canada in Montreal. Your Honor, I remind you again that Marc Garneau, the American consulate, Mr. Chief Justice, and other member states, the Russian Federation, Mr. Chief Justice, for the Security Council, got all of this and more. This is just a few things, Mr. Chief Justice, I want to show the court. You can access it on YouTube. I'll call the address into you tonight, and you can see this. This is absolutely disgusting. Now, I'll go on to the next photo, and then I'll go on to the final document of example evidence that we'll be using against Canada. This picture here is September 2012, okay? You can see new decks on my boat, Mr. Chief Justice. You can see paint over a new deck on the bow. You can see I put plywood in the front, Mr. Chief Justice, to replace my windows, to repair the cabin. You can see the Richelieu River looking west. You can see just part of my friend's boat on the left. You can just catch it on the corner. He's parked across from me. This is his dock. We were working on the boat, Your Honor, privately at a private dock on the river, okay? If you see this orange buoy-looking thing standing at the edge of the dock there with a sign on a stick. Well, not too long after this photo was taken, Your Honor, Pierre Lebrun showed up in a St. Jean-sur-Richelieu rubber boat with 2 police officers, okay, out of the blue. This is where he put my boat in detention, Mr. Chief Justice, using those commercial ship documents I showed you, which are right here for your reference, Mr. Chief Justice. Let's let me These are the documents that Pierre Lebrun handed us, Mr. Chief Justice, on that day in that photograph. Not that day, but not long after. It's this document here, this one. This is the one I'm talking about, okay? Even though Mr. Lebrun, Mr. Chief Justice, knew that we were working on our boat at a private dock to repair it for our own purposes, for safety reasons, Your Honor, my boat was made out of fiberglass. The hull was solid fiberglass, built by the Trojan Yacht Corporation of the United States in 1973. The bottom of the hull, Your Excellency, Mr. Chief Justice, where the engines are located, is half-an-inch solid thick fiberglass. The sides of the hull, right up to the waterline, Mr. Chief Justice, were solid fiberglass. The only thing that leaked on the boat, Mr. Chief Justice, was the wooden cabin. The wooden cabin and superstructure were wood. Mr. Chief Justice, there are wood boats and fiberglass boats with wood superstructures all over Canada, Mr. Chief Justice, and it's not uncommon for these boats to have leaks as a result of the woodwork being needing to be sealed, or minor dry rot patches removed, Your Excellency, and Dutchmans put in their place. Okay, this is not uncommon. It is not illegal, Mr. Chief Justice, to have a boat on a river that leaks. And if we're docked, Mr. Chief Justice, because the boat doesn't have hull numbers, okay? If we're docked to work on the boat, Mr. Chief Justice, Mr. Lebrun had he didn't have any jurisdiction to begin with because he applied the Commercial Shipping Act, as the photos indicate, okay? But what's worse than that, Mr. Chief Justice, as well, is our boat was tied up at a private dock, and I was working on it. It was tied up legally. Mr. Lebrun, Mr. Chief Justice, even if legally he had a right to apply the Commercial Freighter Act, which he didn't, he had no right, neither, Mr. Chief Justice, to put my boat in detention, parked at a legal dock. Okay? So that's the end of most of the photographs. Now, as I said, I'm saving the best for last. This is also for you, Rabbi Hunter, and you, Mr. Chief Justice, and your colleagues. This document, Mr. Chief Justice, Rabbi Hunter, and whoever else sees this, this is what I sent to the White House. You can see here for President Obama. I sent it by fax to the White House. You can see below to the President of the United States of America, to CNN, and it says here to George Bush and Dick Cheney. That's how far back, Your Honor, this document goes. And it also says here, Rabbi Hunter, to you. This is one of the 20 documents, Rabbi Hunter, that you didn't receive by email. What is it? What is this document? Let's read it, Mr. Chief Justice. BC Children's Hospital Department of Radiology. Patient name, Gray Home Baby. Actually, this is dated 2006. Look at the file number, patient ID, Mr. Chief Justice. Take a look. That's the patient ID, Mr. Chief Justice, of our little girl. Bad luck and death, 717. Birth date, 17/07/2006. Age, Mr. Chief Justice, 1 day old, 4 pounds. Requesting physician, Dr. Horatio Asavievich. What's he saying here, Mr. Chief Justice? Gastroschisis SP primary. Question mark, question mark, question mark. UVC pulled out by 2 centimeters. What else does it say here? Let's see. To RCMP on MacArthur. I didn't know we sent that to them. I guess we did. Yes, we did, Your Honor. What does that say? It says pulled. See where it says pulled? It says pulled. You can see where the doctor put question marks, Mr. Chief Justice. Why? Let's read it. I can't pronounce this. I'm not very good. Endotracheal tube and nasogastric tubes are in position. UML, umbilical venous catheter has been withdrawn and is probably in the umbilical vein near the free edge of the liver. Lungs show no new focal airspace consolidation. The bowel gas pattern is relatively unchanged. Signed by Dr. Douglas Jameson, 1907. You see, Mr. Chief Justice, someone pulled my daughter's catheter out. We accuse a social worker named Sarah Smith.
not only did she do that, Mr. Chief Justice, she also, Mr. Chief Justice, was a biker. She had the usual biker qualifications of the rings, jade, Mr. Chief Justice. She also, Mr. Chief Justice, now I'm finished, I just have to stop for a minute and switch the camera over just a moment.